Thank you for that introduction, Kim. That was fantastic. Again, we want to see who's with us. So thank you for showing your faces. Again, this is about us coming together. This is about us forming a family and a language and unity and relationships between us. And for anyone following our Telegram chat, it's been very exciting. We can't actually even keep up to the amount of activity that's happening right now, especially because one of our dear loved ones is in court today and actually using our remedy. So it is exciting. So like we said, we are going to have our glossaries. We're also going to have this platform, this actual slideshow available to you as well. So with that, let's get into it. We do have a bit of an intro though, because, you know, I have to give some apologies. Again, we touched on this when we first did our intro yesterday about how it is difficult, challenging when we have to try and explain something so grand. And even when we try and crayon it, you know, that's why even when Darren tries to crayon for me, I'm like, more, make it dumber, make it dumber, make it dumber. I'm always saying that. You know, we were blessed to be able to have some dear friends that are actually on here give us some feedback about yesterday and its content.
So we got this 1-800 call. I guess it's our complaint department. It got forwarded on up to us and it said, hey, you guys are jumping around too much. Slow it down. If this is still entry level, this is still not entry enough. So again, my fault. I don't know if it's just the way I'm meant to dispose of this knowledge or what, but again, this is why we have so many people involved now, so that my absurd left way out there ideas trickle down and so forth. So how do we remedy a situation like this? Well, okay, if we were to ask that to everybody right now, was yesterday still too fast, or was yesterday still too jumpy? Was it still not let's say
crayony enough?
Yeah, well, there you go. I bet you 2/3 of your hands would be put up right now. Because then again, that's just the way that this thing rolls out. It is so vast, it is so deep, it is so large. You kind of just got to start somewhere and then let it go.
And here's the thing, even if you say you understand it, challenge yourself then and go and have a conversation with someone who's sleeping. Formulate a language for this. I dare you. You'll fumble and you'll be like, it's something about a birth certificate and a person. Like I fumbled. It was bad when I first started. So again, what you think is easy to explain, try.
And again, you know what? If while you're standing there in front of the mirror brushing your teeth, try to explain to yourself there. Separate yourself, change your perspective for a moment. Again, you'd be shocked at when you're on the hot spot to try to start to explain this stuff. For some reason, it will come to you. Why? Why is that? It's almost like we've heard some of this stuff before, or it seems to come so naturally that this can't be false. It can't be unreal. It can't be not reasonable. It can't not be the way things ought to be. Because why is this affecting so many of us all at the same time? Why are we all trying to do better things? Why are we trying to help each other? Why are we, and I'm talking loved ones, like digging deep. We're doing some ridiculous stuff that most people think that we are so out to lunch, you know, that they were never going to hear from us again. But point being, why did our fellow loved one this morning, and this guy's been a trooper for a number of years. Dean and I are really good friends with this guy. And this is where I was actually explaining to Kim and Jody today about the crayon presentation here is one thing, but that doesn't mean that I also have the intermediate or the moderate or the advanced stuff rolling on the sides as well. And again, this is what the Dîevergent live platform is specifically for. I will talk crayon and sub crayon categories all the way to advanced to, hey, this is what I would say if I were you walking into court right now. Boom. And in half an hour, we have a response. So now imagine if there's 25 of us doing this type of thing. This is where our sharing between the group here is actually going to create a lot of the crayon experience for us. Once we understand some of these, I know they're technical words. I know they're words that we're not familiar with. Again, loved ones, these are this is almost like the lost knowledge that we were never meant to understand or figure out or make progress with. This was all hidden from us for a reason. So when we hear these things, these words, when we hear these new definitions of these words, it's going to take a moment to let this sink in. Don't think, oh, I listened to 1 or 2 episodes, and then boom, I should know more. You know what? You are knowing more. Just let it come.
And even if you don't fully get something, because here's the thing, we're going to lay it out as crayon as we can, but we're going to inject the advanced, the intermediate, the beginner. We're going to put all of the seeds into the program. So even if you're like, okay, pretty much 70% of that I didn't understand, that's okay, because now you're taking 30% with you to the next level. And that's perfect, because then when you go back on to and reread, or you go and re-listen to this video, then as your knowledge grows, you can start listening to the intermediate level. You're not going to learn something unless we plant seeds.
And this is where actually you can hop, skip, and jump real quick. When you go from the simple or sub-simple to mediocre to, well, that's pretty hardcore. Ooh, you know, that's really right field. When you can actually see that string of events, you will start to see these key words and this energy. And once you are more familiarized with this, once you're more exposed to this picture will appear for you much quicker. Don't be stuck with, hey, I'm in crayon school. Again, that should be, you know, I'm in a position, or I'm in a state of being where I am learning crayon on my way to the next.
You're learning crayon version of equity. It is a class all on its own, not of this world.
Yeah, it's pretty.
So even learning it at crayon version.
Don't again.
Applaud.
Yeah, don't let that ever feel like it's a detractive type statement, or that you're just well, I guess we really are babes when it comes to this. So yeah, let it make you feel like you're literally in grade 2 again, and you get to start all over. But you know what? Take this opportunity to do it different. You know, how many of us would love to go have almost a second chance? Almost imagine and manifest this opportunity right now in our lives for this purpose. Grab the crayons, grab the blank paper, and start. Just start. Don't worry. The shapes will come. The meanings will come. The vibration and understanding and comprehension and ability to walk into a certain situation and not just take control, but to assign duties and obligations, you know, negotiate instruments, create trust, talk to a judge, get stuff appointed, like just let stuff rip.
Mic dropping. Absolutely. We'll get you there. We promise.
Keep in mind here, loved ones, Dean took the grade 8 exam. I think it was from the late 1800s. I don't quite remember where it was from, but it's probably from somewhere local here. I don't know where he got his hands on this exam, but he did. And he failed miserably. Grade 8 level of knowledge in the boys and girls back then. They had promissory note stuff in there. Dean's like, you've got to be kidding me. How to draft this and how to handle and manage your own affairs at grade 8. That should be a pretty humbling feeling for a second. Yeah, you might have a fancy college degree on your wall, but you know what? At the end of the day, you can thank the Rockefellers for that.
And their exquisite programming.
And the Rothschilds and the Kissingers and all these other corporate executive empire hooligan type men that have just, they've bitten that apple and they received the rotten side. It's almost like, you know, we are here to help with this situation, and we are doing the best we can with what we got. So let that energy flow, let it hit you today. So we're going to recap. We're going to go over some things again here that were said yesterday. We're going to help to harmonize this a little more. And again, I think really a third of every episode should be recapping some of the highlights and questions that we have from the day before.
We're going to recap this hard.
And just keep going. And as we recap, we will also introduce other layers. We will also introduce other perspectives. We will also introduce other variables, things of this nature, so that this picture starts to form in your mind. And once you have this capability, you'll find, yes, you will wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this stuff. Because when this switch gets turned on, loved ones, it's almost like you can't turn it off again.
It's like you got the bug.
And here's why this is very important. This happened to our loved one today. When actually, to be honest with you, I actually haven't even seen the last 100 messages of Dîevergent Live because I've been outside.
It happened in an hour.
Because I was outside doing stuff. But here's what the nuts and bolts of what the registrar said to our loved one today. Once you do this, you know you can't go back, right?
And we won't give it back.
That is such a profound statement. Thank you, registrar. Yes, that is the definition of redemption. Once I do this, I have no intention of going back. Goosebumps. Thank you, loved ones. Again, what if 25 or what if 250 of us? Again, when you come in peace, when you come with the mindset and the open heart, or when you come as a child, when you come with your innocence, again, when you're asking forgiveness, when you're asking to be forgiven for a mistake that I made, we all made this mistake, Your Honor. And that's why I'm here to correct this, because there's, at this point in my life, there is nothing more important.
And so do you hear him speaking? It's not a whole bunch of big language that none of us understand. This is what we're trying to explain, is that you don't have to know the big legal words. As long as your heart is pure, you have intention, and you can formulate a language for this, the judge will hear you.
And here's another perfect example of equity in motion. But remember, number one, equity operates quietly. It's almost like a secret.
Private.
It's private. So when things are not being said, you can actually assume that certain things are being said. When they have a problem, they will let you know. Okay, that's just the way that they do this. And they let you know.
No news is good news.
And they let you know really quick. Okay, so you never have to worry about this. So moving forward, here's a perfect example of equity in motion when it's working. This elderly lady was unable to make her mortgage payment. Bank was foreclosing on her. She walks into court and she says this to the judge: Your Honor, due to my frailty and my poverty and my old age, Your Honor, I am just unable to make the mortgage payment. Now, I've talked about this one in the past, but you know what?
Very simple.
You know what the judge does? He literally rips the mortgage up in open court.
Equity at its best.
Maybe the judge was having a good day. Would he do that for the next Susan the next day? I don't know. He might not. He may have just had a soft spot for this lady because she was not acting in person. I mean, there may have been a little bit more to this, but that was how I was told the story. And this is a perfect example of how equity actually works. Again, loved one today coming without certain things, but with new things and a whole new attitude. And he's coming with a place of confidence. And he's coming from a place with simplicity, where he's been playing with the crayons here for a number of years. This brother of ours, this friend of ours, he's been at this higher level for probably 3.5 years now, ish. And he's finally just getting into court and getting the job done now. So how do we take 3.5 years and we simplify that down to 3 hours or 3 episodes or 3 weeks? Point being, we're going to do what we can to try. And we're not just going to try, we're actually doing it. So this recap, we might as well start with it because I've talked long enough about.
No.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Come on now. You never talk long enough. Okay, so let me pull this up. I'm gonna make this big screen. Hold on, please. All right, loved ones, here we go. So, one second here. Welcome to Kindergarten, episode 2, November 16th, 2021. Why will it not? Hold on one second. Kim, I'm going to get you to share it because this is not working for me. Of course not. Thank you very much. Okay. Here we go. So this is Kindergarten, everyone. This is a fantastic platform that Dîevergence is using so that we can start imparting some wisdom. Start, again, like we said, building a glossary and documents for you to be able to build and collect a little equity Bible, as you might call it. We have spoken about this before, that equity is its own language, and you have to be able to see equity in order to have equity eyes. And, you know, now that our queens especially have been trained in the energy of equity, now when we go and we read documents, when we are doing our research, the energy of that, what we find out, how amazed we are, never ceases to continue. So with that, as mentioned, we have 3 levels. So for the newbies coming in, we have a red level, which is Sharpie level. You got your equity advanced eyes on. Absolutely. Here's your orange, which is pencil version, and then green, which is going to be crayon. So next. This is what we're going to be covering, loved ones, because when we talked about this kernel, his information resonates with us. When we connected as far as how do we start unraveling, pulling out these strings to reveal to people what's really going on, this is the quote, this is the information that was given to us so that we can start, again, building the vocabulary. So with that, moving on, Kim, we learned that an American crayon version means you are a member of a club. Now that club, it can be private or it can be public. We already know this. So if you're pledging that you're a public citizen, an American public citizen, super proud, you guys got your flags on your front lawn. Well, the crayon version of a person means a human. So let's define exactly what a human means. Well, a human is a monster. We kind of upped our crayon so we could give you a few visuals. We want you to start feeling things a little bit so that when we start talking about these words, they mean something. They physically affect you when you start reading them or start seeing them out in public. So when we go back to what a human means, it's a monster. So crayon version, we learned this. It's a prodigious, I love how I learned how to say that word now. I've said it so many times. It's a prodigious meaning unnatural or abnormal. So a prodigious abnormal birth.
A human birth.
Yeah, human. Exactly. That doesn't have the shape of mankind. Does that remind you of anyone? This is why we put pictures up of monsters.
And again, just to add a quick clarification here, again, if it's not in the shape of mankind, what is it in the shape of, and who created that shape? This might be hands off for us, and we should have actually been a little bit more astute, or we should have been paying attention a little bit more when we were about 16 years old, but we didn't. But we're here to fix the problem now.
Absolutely. So with that, we're always going to go back to the phrase that the Colonel was talking about. So when we start breaking down, when he said very soon, every American, what he's saying, now that we understand the meaning of the word, that very soon, every unnatural, abnormal human monster. Oh, no, Kim, go back, please.
And just let me throw something in here for a moment. When you admit, or when you identify, or when you act as, or when you pretend to be, or when you believe you are an unnatural, abnormal human monster, you're going to be treated like one.
And just for a moment, let's just look at this thing. Take a moment to actually look at this. You're like, oh, Jody, that's like super scary. Like, come on now. There's your American. Proud and free, not. This is what we are starting to unveil, loved ones. That's what an American is. Because every single morning, that American going to work goes and zips up that monster suit. Someone who he is not. Where the officer goes up to him and goes, are you that monster? Are you sure? And you go, yeah.
And if you're a monster, what rights does a monster have? Let's just suggest zero. The Bible calls it, really, it's an abomination.
Oof.
There's nothing more.
We need to define. We'll put that one in the glossary.
Yeah, like
let's add that one to the glossary.
It's just
abomination.
It's so filthy. It's so, you don't want to be one of these things. It's so dark, or even evil, if you want to use the word that everybody's familiar with. You don't want to be anything to do. You don't want to have anything or any association to being a monster. Our Creator did not create monsters.
No. And next screen, please. Thank you, Kim. So this is the part that we didn't quite get to yesterday, which was the part about what does scripture say about persons. And here's the thing, loved ones. I had a very religious background. I have spoken about this. I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness for 20 years of my life. I had read the scripture 3 ways to Sunday. I could look up scriptures faster than anyone you knew. And it was ironic because in my journey and all of this, I kind of turned my head a little bit to scripture for a very long part of my life. And to have it now back in my life, and in such a way where now scripture has meaning, I resonate more with it. What I knew of it before did not. So let's talk about persons. Because here's the thing, now that we know persons are monsters, what does Job 13 verse 10 say?
He will surely reprove you, which means he will show you the right path. He will hit you with a stick. He will make sure you get it.
Ouch.
If ye do secretly, when you're sleeping, when you're out and about in the public, when you're doing anything, if you accept persons. Pretty powerful one.
Proverbs 28:21, to have respect of persons is not good.
And respect is a very important word here, because when you pay respects, that means something's dead, right? Or something is maybe in transition, or you're trying to prove a point in a contract or something or other. But point is, when you're typically, this is about when you're paying your last respects, because persons are not living. So if this thing's not living and it's a monster, and scriptures is telling me don't secretly accept this thing, that means you better know some stuff, or else some snake oil salesman might come along to your village and want to sell you something or give you something. Here, just accept this, try this, whatever. Take a bite of this apple. It'll be okay. Clearly it wasn't. So we were to get ourselves in a position where to understand what a person means, right? So to have respect of persons is not good. So we know the word good is going to be the opposite of bad. So this is going to be really bad if you accept this thing.
Especially for a piece of bread.
For a piece of for a piece of bread. A man will transgress. A man will commit iniquitable sin. He will sell his soul. He will do anything, even for a simple piece of bread.
And that means to go backwards, not forwards as well, to transgress. Deuteronomy 10 verse 17, for the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, a great God, a mighty and a terrible, which regardeth not persons, nor taketh reward. Okay, so he's saying she does not regard persons at all. So again, when yesterday we were talking about when you show up at the door and you go, ding dong, dad, I'm home, but I'm wearing a person, I look like a monster. Son, remove that monster. No, this is who I am now. Well, son, I didn't create you in that image. Well, it doesn't matter because this is the image I am now. This is what I've chosen. I've exercised my free will. Slap in the face to dad, creator. We're pissing him off. Careful. If you piss him off enough, he's going to start sending lightning bolts with your name on it. And you may be wondering why. Why does my life suck so bad? Why am I depressed all the time? Why am I just right? Blah, 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 why are the zaps getting stronger?
How come nothing I seem to do seems to improve my life? Probably because you're still doing the wrong stuff. not acting in person is going to be a huge one. When you wake up in the morning and you can say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to act in person till 3 o'clock when I absolutely have to, just for my job so that I can get a paycheck so I can pay for my family's food. You know what? Fine. But just be aware of that. At least we're making progress. At least we're starting to say, hey, I know what that thing is, and I don't want to do it. But for now, I'm kind of stuck. And until I'm in a better position, hopefully through this Crayon program, maybe in a week or 3, I'm going to start to understand things a little bit better, so that maybe in a handful of hours, I would be capable of drafting my own paperwork. Maybe I would be able to say a few words to a judge,
Or an officer.
or a master, or a lawyer, or a banker, or even your best friend, because this, loved one, starts to completely change your life when you stop acting in person. This is the crux of the darkness or evil's spell. Spelling, again, we've talked about this one in other episodes. The public school system teaches us how to do certain things very proficiently without us really even knowing what's going on. So, nor taketh reward. So not only does our Creator not regard persons, nor taketh reward. Okay, well, what does the nor taketh reward part mean? So clearly there's a ward, and it's being moved from this position to this position.
Change.
Something's changing here. Or there's some type of monetary value where I claimed something and maybe I'm rewarded for my good behavior.
Increase.
So there could be a few ways that, nor taketh reward. So he's probably not going to regard any of your riches that you've acquired while acting in person.
Or no rewards for persons.
Which is why Creator and Spirit and Scripture talks about don't lay up your treasures in earthly, carnal, knowledgey kind of things. Don't be laying it up in person. Use your talents I gave you for something a little better, loved ones.
Romans 2 verse 11, for there is no respect of persons with God. So when we can wrap our brains around this, all our churchgoers, bless your hearts, A for effort.
But we missed the boat huge. Huge, loved ones, huge.
God has no respect. Acts 10 verse 34, then Peter opened his mouth and said, of a truth I perceive that God is no respecter of persons.
So again, we're starting to cement home something pretty, repetitive and simple here. Don't act in person. Don't do anything with persons, as a matter of fact. What if that was, let the dead bury the dead? There's another chunk of scripture. Persons and dead things, let the dead bury the dead, let the dead play with the dead, let the dead intercourse with the dead. But my children, I want you to stay clean. I don't want you to be fornicating with those things. I don't want you to be associating with those dead things, because I gave you life. And if you're going to change who you are and worship the dead and take on this whole new personality that I didn't create you with, you're literally insulting me. You're insulting us.
Yeah, big time. Crayon summary. I love this one. Father doesn't like persons, in case we lost you at any part of any of that. Okay, here's God. He's doing this. Doesn't matter if you're going to church. It doesn't matter if you're robbing something. It doesn't matter. We're all persons. We're all in the shit pit. We're all in the same matrix.
Which was very important. They had to level the field. And by they, I'm just saying whoever put all this crazy system together. And believe me, folks, when I say I've spent a lot of time in this system, living it, breathing it, sitting on the toilet in the morning with it, I can't well, you didn't like
you
that
went
one?
there, hey?
Well, I did. I mean, children, it's a, like they know what's going on.
Come on now. Moving along.
You can't escape this thing until you start to get ahead of it. And by getting ahead of it, we actually start to realize what it is. As soon as we know what it is, we can identify it, but not as it. Aha. We have two situations now. We have two perspectives. We have two moments in time. Elect or choose the proper one here. Don't be choosing the one we're not supposed to. The less time you can spend acting in person, start there. Just be mindful of that. I'm smiling right now because I'm not acting in person. That means I'm receiving the gifts and the blessings, because I'm literally not committing any sin right now.
So going back to the Colonel's prediction, when he said soon every American, this is what he's basically saying. Soon every person, every corporation, and all monsters. Ouch. This is now starting to have some more meaning. So it carries on by saying that soon every person, corporation, monster will be required. Okay, what does required mean? Well, the definition of required, and again, when we have these in different colors, loved ones, pick your color so that you can read this easier. But again, every time we define it, we're going to always do it in green for crayon. So required in Black's Law, okay, because again, anytime we're quoting for Black's Law, it is in red. It means to, and I'll always let Darren do the red.
Okay, so to direct, that means I have authority over you. Or you're in my Hollywood movie, and as the director, I get to tell the actor what the hell to do. I can literally walk up to him, punch him right in the face. It's part of the script. Look, it's written right here, and you agreed to it. You think you can sue me? Not a chance. Because the rest of this contract literally waived our rights. We can't sue the director. So now I get to direct you. I get to order you. I get to demand, instruct, command. Command's a big one. I can claim, I can compel, I can force, and I can request, and I can do anything I need to, and I can exactly do whatever the heck it is I want to do against us. Now, by saying by me, I'm saying the state can do literally any of that against its citizens if it chooses to.
Orange version, please.
So required means, okay, this is necessary. This should be done, and it's going to be done. It's going to be provided, and you're not going to really have a lot to do or say about it. You can have as many protests as you want. You can kind of complain all you like and kick the door screaming and whatnot, but unless you have a little bit of something up your sleeve, you're going to be doing exactly what you're told.
So the crayon version of this, loved ones, is required means to demand. No choice. Means compelled must. You can't escape. You will be forced. Are we not seeing that right now? Where we thought we had all these free wills, all these people saying, I do not consent.
It's against my will. Okay. You don't have a will.
Dead people don't have wills. They don't have opinions. They have nothing.
They have nothing. Property rights, loved ones, when we granted our property rights to this state, that literally means everything. They didn't leave anything out. The only thing they left out was the fact that you're still living and breathing. They can't really control that, although they certainly try. Now, while you're living and breathing, you can do and say and behave differently if you choose to. And if you do the right things at the right times, you might have the right results. You might be thoroughly, impressed, as our one loved one is finding out today. Again, if the registrar says, once you do this, there's no going back. Bingo. That's exactly what we're after. Personally, loved ones, I've never had a registrar say that to me before. So you see the progress we're making by having each and every one of you getting involved and doing some simple things. By not acting in person, it's the most honorable thing we can be doing to our creator. Let's not really care about what our temporary government thinks of us at the moment. Don't give 2 red cents what their opinion is. We're going right above them. So when they require us to do any of this stuff as one of their subjects, or as one of their citizens, or as one of their club members,
They can. They're suits with gloves.
They can do whatever they want.
They say jump, you have to. And as high as they want to. And this is very different from request, because these can be denied. They can be voided, not accepted, not acted upon, not laughed at.
So moving forward, this thing was reading a moment ago, and it's starting to read a little bit different now.
Yeah, it's kind of getting a little yucky feeling. You know, when we're talking about energy, look how they made a rose. Well, actually, it's actually a shit into a rose. That's what they were very capable of doing here. So very soon, every unnatural, abnormal human monster will be demanded and forced. Ouch. This is not sounding very good, whatever this prediction is. So we will be forced to register. Let's talk register.
Let's just talk register for a moment. What is this? Where did this come from? Well, scripture again talks about this. King Herod, I believe, was the gentleman king, allegedly, who was after trying to track down Christ when Christ was a baby. Now, he developed a list, or he developed a schedule, or he developed a program where every child is to be killed under the age of, well, whatever it was, 3 or 5 or something to this effect. Let's just back that story up for a second. What are some alternate interpretations of what that could have meant? Did King Herod really order the execution, as in put a knife into the heart of every 3-year-old? That's one way to interpret it. Or could he have said, go register?
Same thing.
Go register every 3-year-old on this public paperwork so that we can start keeping track and we can start developing property rights over these citizens of ours. This register, meaning public property, it's a record held by record keepers that act for or work for or are agents of Her Majesty the Queen in the right of whatever province or country you're in. Or, for example, the registrar of something within the United States of America. China, Russia, it doesn't matter. They have to register everything everywhere. This is how they monitor property. This is how they monitor interests in property. Now, again, property is anything. It can be an idea. It can be a can. It can be a cell phone. It can be it can be a feeling if you express it properly. So register is literally going to be a book containing a record of facts as they have occurred. Or another word for that is an event kept by the public authority.
Written down.
A register, a public list, a listing. There's another word that we're going to go over one day. Listing is a very important word. A register of births, marriages, and burials, and other events like this. Okay, so now we have this public event being held publicly, being managed publicly. It's all in the public interest. It's all about public affairs. It's all about public. We were raised in public schools, through public families, through public events, through public courses of action, public legislation. The list is endless. It's all about the public.
So the Crayon version of that is when we register whatever they're asking us to register, that it is made public property.
The public has an interest in it because you registered it with the public. See? It's actually kind of simple. Hey, I want you to know everything I'm doing, so I'm going to give you everything. How's that? And the state says, well, okay.
Thank you very much.
Problem is that mom and dad and us as a young man or woman, we didn't quite really know what was being registered or what the possibilities could be with such a thing that's registered. Again, all things that they never taught us in school. You could go to university and still not hear anything about this stuff. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Because they literally keep this stuff that secret. This was meant for a very small group of people. And for them, it was to unleash, or it was to unbridle, or it was to unbind them. It was to allow them to go forth and do all the incredible things that the scriptures and other holy manuscripts from other cultures talk about. We're not supposed to all wind up in flames. We're not all supposed to be the darkness or Satan's little minions. We weren't all supposed to go to hell. Especially when you start exercising your will properly. And your will, again, where did you get your will from? Well, it came from your creator. So when you want to register your will, when you want to make our creator's will known to the public, there becomes a problem. They don't actually let you do that. They don't allow us to register things to do with our creator and living things, things that concern love and affection, things of this nature. You can't register any of that stuff. It's kind of strange. So how do you express an interest in any of this stuff? Well, the first thing you want to do is not act as a public person.
Let's talk public.
So here's the public. There's literally two types of publics out there. You got the public pre or before 1913, 14, when the first real Emergency Banking Relief Act legislation was passed. This is where your parliaments all got together around the world, and all the bankers, they started to come up with these excellent ideas to set us all up for an incredible situation that we would never, ever, ever be able to figure out. These are some incredibly intelligent and maniacal people in the background that have just got some incredible ideas. But here's the catch. Some of these ideas, there is good in them. Thing is, though, we aren't entitled, or we can't get to those good things because we're not acting very good ourselves. When we're acting as a public person, when we are pertaining to a state, and again, there's that word per. When you're pertaining, that's half of the word of person right there when you're talking about pertaining. So you're saying right here, well, as I'm acting or as I'm relating to a state, how can you relate to a state? How can you act as a state? As a corporation, a nation, something that is written on paper, or it's in your mind, or a whole community. Anything proceeding from or relating to or affecting the whole body of a people or an entire community. Open to all. Notorious. Common to all or many. General. Open to common use. Here's an interesting word out of all of that I want you to really focus on. It's on the word common. It's mentioned twice here. It's kind of said in the word community. So in like 2 or 3 or 4 times here, the word common is talking about commoners. Commoners. That's the norm. I shit you not. That's the definition in the Bible of the filthy people. The filthy people that don't know any better.
The common law.
The transgressors.
For the common people.
So, if it's open to the filthy people, is it allowed in our temple where we keep everything very squeaky clean and everything's very in order? And
no dirt in the kingdom.
And it's very endearing of love and affection and kindness. Do you allow filth into that house? No.
So, Crayon version of everybody has access to whatever everybody has access to. Wow, that's a whole, I messed that line up real bad there, honey. It means that everybody has access to everything that they want. It is the opposite of private. Anyone can get information of you. When you decide to enter into the system
and register
yourself as I'm player 2,942. That's literally what you are, which is a social insurance number. They have access to everything that character does within that matrix. So when these people are saying, you don't have the ability to put that into my body, you can't do that, I didn't consent. Yes, you did. You are program your character, you are a corporation, they can do whatever they want to you.
Which is why they always ask you to admit something. Is this you? Yes. Do you wish to proceed as this? Yes.
How do you plead?
How do you plead as this? Like this? What would you see? They get us to dig our own hole, and then they get us to jump in, and somehow they get us to cover ourselves, all in the same thing. It's ridiculous.
They actually get us to every morning proudly zip up that monster suit.
Yeah. So
and we don't even see the monster. We put on our lipstick and we do up our face. That's the crazy part, is we don't even realize we're leaving as absolute spiritual, energetic, and legal monsters.
So what we're trying to say here in a nutshell, again, a living man and woman can't be owned or registered, but a corporation can.
This was a big one for me. So when we can get that a living man or woman can't be owned or registered, please explain that.
That means you can't be controlled. That means I can't walk up to you and say, you were driving 30 kilometers an hour over the speed limit, I'm going to give you a ticket. I can't do that. Not at all.
Why?
Because I have no power over you. You were created equally as I am. But here's where things get changed real quick. If I am not acting in person, or if I at least know the difference, right? And I ask you, are you acting in person? And as soon as you say, yes, I am, you just lost all your rights. You just lost everything. Well, if you lost it, who has it? Guess what? I do. I picked it up. I expressed an interest in it. And now because I have all your rights and you've agreed to our little contract here, I'm going to give you a ticket for $350 and you've already pre-agreed to pay for it. Thank you.
So the only one that can get you, or the only one that can actually own you, is who created you. So let us say that again.
So who created you?
The only one who can control you is the one who created you. Who created us?
So when a piece of plastic shows up in the mail when you're 16 years old, has that other name on it, and you open up that envelope, you break that seal of that envelope. That part right there is very important. You've just accepted. It's almost like, when you rub Genie's lamp and something happens. It's kind of like that in reverse. As soon as you open that seal, it's like you let something out. Something that wasn't meant to be let out.
Dirty hands. This is where we get our cloud. Once we register, boom. We are literally registering as a player in this matrix. That's when it happened. That's why they can control you. You're no longer in the garden. You signed up to be somebody else that they can control. And the registration is the transformation. It's the morphosis of it. It's the flush. In Matrix, when they flushed, that's literally what happened. We became something different. We're all hooked up to these cords. It's what made us living and transformed us into something dead.
And that's a big deal.
Big deal.
That may sound a little bit, okay, it can't be that bad because, yeah, well, it's just a piece of plastic, but I'm still living here. I'm still breathing. I'm still eating. Yeah, I know. But you know what the record shows? The record shows that you do not exist. It shows that an event happened, and then that's it. Nobody ever came forward to say, hey, that's my event. That's just for me. I don't want that. I don't want to share that with the public. My loving creator promised me something special, and I'm here to collect on my special interests, Your Honor.
I don't need what you're offering.
I'm not interested in the public's treasure chest. I'm interested in the wealth of another.
I wish to serve our Father. I wish to have clean hands, no title, no cloud.
Without removing the cloud from your title is another very, very, very important thing. This should be something that's included in a church's baptism. If you've all been baptized, I suggest you're going to have to do it again. And here's why. Okay, well, unless you prove me wrong here, loved ones, and if you, during your baptism, if you shed your surname, then I would consider that a legitimate baptism. How many of us did that? None. There's still a surname attached to that baptism name. You went right back. Yeah, you went for a swim. You felt real good. 20,000 people here watched it. It was a beautiful thing. But then you went right back to serving Satan, just as filthy as you were the moment you went in for your dip.
You got clean, you stepped up, you grabbed your towel, you dried off, zipped up the monster suit.
And walked off stage.
And God went,
This is why I'm suggesting our pastors, ministers, preachers, all those, that whole layer. Yes, their hearts are in the right place, but they just don't know enough. They don't know anything about this stuff.
We were tricked.
We were tricked. And again, that's not ill will to a man or woman, trying to.
When you're oblivious, when you don't know.
It's not their fault.
But when you know better, you better do better.
So once you're dead, or once you volunteer to be something dead, or once you pretend to be something dead, you don't have a whole lot of lights too. You don't have a whole lot of lights or rights left. And that's why the public can now control you.
And this is what we're seeing, loved ones. So let's go back to the quote. Very soon, every unnatural, abnormal human monster will be demanded and forced to make available to everyone publicly and to be controlled by the government.
Ugh. And what do they want to control? They want to control the biological property.
Let's talk biological property. This one we had to go on a little bit of a search. Did you know there's actually biological property in Black's Law?
So interestingly enough, the first thing it talks about is ownership. That is the entire backbone, or the entire whole purpose that Divergence is here, which is why Dean and I have done what we've done, and a number of others. We're trying to figure out what this whole ownership thing is. What is it that we can own, and is it a good idea? And is it the only thing we can own? So the ownership, the unrestricted and exclusive right to a thing, that means it's yours. You control it. The right to dispose of a thing in every legal way. To dispose of, that doesn't really mean flush down the toilet. It just means to move an interest or an idea in something from here to there. I wish to dispose of an interest. I'm going to pass a can that I'm interested in, and I'm going to pass it to Jody. There. And if she accepts it, I just disposed of something. Dispose is just something moving.
At the same time, what you're moving, it's not very good.
So literally what we're doing here is we're moving something very valuable, like our creator given inherent rights, something that we were born with, something that is inalienable, something that cannot be taken away. Even if you want to give it away, you kind of can't. But you can sure, kick up and down and have a fuss, and I'm going to act in person. I don't care what you say because my paycheck is so important to me. Valid argument. Sure. We will let you exercise that will all you like. All we're suggesting here is that once you do that, and once you're in possession of something you don't want to have, no one can interfere with this thing. That means even you've literally disposed of one thing, you've taken on another thing in its place. It's just a little switcheroo. It's
a possession.
You're
possessed now.
You had A, you gave it over there, and then you took B. Bad choice, but we didn't know. Again, this is what Divergence is here to explain. Okay, back to the ownership thing here real quick. What am I talking about? What did we claim ownership of? That all caps name. That person. We claimed we owned that person. And by doing so, that means we created it. If we created this thing, if this is an image that we're now going to act as, you just acted like a god. And this is what our Father and the scriptures and many other holy texts out there tell us exactly not to do.
It's kind of a no-no.
It's a huge no-no. It's the big no-no. It is so profoundly such a no-no. And yet it's interesting how Satan chose that to be his number one go-to. As the ultimate smack in the face to our creator. Haha, look, I can trick your children into doing anything I want. Look, they broke your first rule. So all the rest were easy peasy.
So let's move on to the Crayon version of this. The Crayon version of biological property.
The ability of a bio...
No.
Oh, where are we?
Kim, can you just move to green, please?
Okay.
So when we were going over biological, Darren wanted to break up the word. Okay, so let's just kind of break this up. What does bi mean? Well, if you look up the Crayon version of bi, it means twice or two. So in biological, it's implying that there are at least two parties involved. Who are these two parties? First one, well, you're here. You're one of them. Well, who made you? Mama.
And probably dad. So really, there's three parties
Actually,
right off the hop.
and that's why there's a minimum of at least two parties in the word by. It's not just two parties, it's two or more. So we now have two parties. We'll just say you and your mom. That was the first one. Then she took your paperwork and she made you public. Your parents made you in an event. Here, take an interest in my baby. They even put you into the newspaper. You're so special. And the government went, oh, look. And they did. And that's when Her Majesty the Queen, the state swooped in, became the third party, if not fourth, and swooped up your interests, your free will, your freedom, your God-given inheritance. They took it all.
And they're holding it. And here's at the end of the day, loved ones, I would like to convey this message. I'm actually impressed with what they were actually trying to do here, because here's why. Once you get your superpowers, once you have all this incredible knowledge and intent and charitability, you have all this incredible stuff. And they actually had to make sure that you were ready. Tony Stark, right? When he first started flying around, he didn't do too good. Same idea. They want to minimize the damage. They want to train us. They want us to actually have our powers tuned up. So when we hit the ignition button, this is all done properly. There's not a lot of wasted time. So what they're doing here is they're taking everything away from us. They're letting us learn life's hard lessons. And if we do a good job, and if we do it well, and if we do it with all the right intent, we may have a reward waiting for us at the end of the day. That reward was born with us, yes, but then mom and dad got rid of it for us.
So on to the O we go. The O, endless possibilities or combinations of things. Around and around you go.
And logical is, here's like the Spock version from Star Trek. It's the science of reasoning, or of the operations, of the understanding which are subservient to the estimation of evidence. The terms includes both the process itself of proceeding from known truths to unknown. So there's a lot going on here is what it's saying. So, and in all other intellectual operations, insofar as auxiliary to this. So that's a pretty large statement. That's saying a lot. It's basically trying to say the entire process of thinking. And how do you just kind of define that into a sentence or three? That's a pretty tough one. But the red version here, they do a pretty good job at confusing us. So
let's orange it.
So the orange version, this is suggesting that logical is characterized, or it can be seen as, or it is capable of being clear and sound or reasonable way of thinking. Just the average. It doesn't have to be incredibly special. It has to be reasonable, though. If I look out the window and the sky looks blue, it's pretty logical that tomorrow the sky is going to be blue.
That's why the crayon version of it. It's something that makes sense the way it should be.
It's logical. When water gets cold enough, it freezes. Simple. It's just a lot of common sense type stuff. Although, if you start getting into some technical subject matters, that what may seem to be simple technically, as equity is turning out to be here, it may not come out that way.
So let's talk about this. So once they register our biological property, they capture an interest in our DNA. And once they do that, that's when they control you and all aspects of you, even being able to directly punish the host's DNA. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Everything that our life touches, imagine an invisible cord attached to everything. Once they have the main thing, they have everything else attached to it. And that includes everything about you or about us.
So your labor, your life force, your work output, what you're capable of doing, they lay claim to all of it. They capture all of you.
And it's coincident, that with modern technology nowadays, wow, can they ever monitor everything we do? Correct? Yeah, absolutely. It's to the point where it's absurd. So I'm really hoping here that we're able to turn this right around real quick and use this all for good.
And if they have an interest in the tree, they have an interest in the fruit.
Simple,
and that's
right?
why they take all your labor, all your taxes. They take everything. They squeeze you. They make you jam, juice, pie fillings, vine. They make all the things out of you. They even can consume you.
Which, ironically, again, is something that we think is going on nowadays. So
Wild.
it's yeah, they've taken it to an extreme. So anyway, this is also why they can also force us to put things into our bodies without our consent. Well, how can they do that? Well, that's because they already have our consent. That's why the entire Divergence teaching schedule, all its programs, all the schools, all the knowledge that we're trying to lay down here, loved ones, and my brother, and all of the other loved ones that I've been talking about here in the past, we're trying to show people where we did consent. We used to think that this was an argument back in the day. Oh, I don't consent. The judge considered that for a moment in the very beginning, but it didn't take very long until they started to say, we don't need your consent. Now, they would only say that because they already have. Why would you need something if you already have it? See, there's no need.
We always giggle at these consent posts that we see all the time. And all the things you're going to read to the officer, and you're going to say this and carry this card. Stop it.
Yeah. So rather than argue something, again, this is where a simple-minded man or woman would do it, is a friendly way of saying it. Rather than say, I don't consent, you're better off saying, I did consent, and that was my wrongdoing. And at this point, I'm going to correct that mistake and move forward. Rather than argue something that does exist, just roll with it and change it right away. Change your interest in it. Again, there's a whole court process that allows a party, us, to change our interests in something.
And this is when we made masters, we made lords, and why they had a right to do this, and why we were complaining, saying, that's not fair. That's not fair. I have a voice in all of this. No, you don't. That's what we're realizing.
Yeah, they want us to believe we have a voice. They have to keep the illusion going. Otherwise, no one would play their game. And then they wouldn't be able to profit from it, do everything that they do.
So let's finish up with this saying. All right, loved ones, very soon, every unnatural, abnormal human monster will be demanded and forced to make available to everyone publicly and to be controlled by the government. They're anything concerning your life and any interest in it.
And ironically enough here, folks, they are really going after the private property rights right now too. So what that's suggesting is everything that we're trying to teach people here, they even want to take that away. Well, what would allow them to do such a thing? Well, if you entered material into your costume that changed your character one more time, you're now twice removed from what you originally were. And this 1, 2, 3, I think, is all by design. Because once you are so far removed from your original thing, they can take absolutely everything away from you now, even equity.
Ooh, so they can take equity away from you. Let's just
here's an example. Here's an example. Would you think that a zombie who's trying to eat you is entitled to equity?
No.
I'm going to say no. Is the monster that wants to kill you and rip your arms off and drink your blood, does that thing need equity? No. It's operating on a whole different thing. So, by everything in our life, we're literally saying everything is gone. It's pledged away. And they give us certain things back to try to keep us quiet and keep us content and keep us happy and watch our football on, every Sunday. But at the end of the day, we have a lot to do. We have a lot of ground to cover. We have a lot of life interest to express. That's part of the problem here, loved ones. The government is actually doing us a favor. Okay, I know, You won't hear me rip on the government too much anymore, not like I used to. The government literally did us a favor. Now it's up to us to show up now in peace and reinvest. Maybe not in the government that we see out there right now, but for now, we're going to invest in the government through the judges. And then we, through our special investment, we're going to actually take a new position and we're going to tell the government what to do. How would that? Doesn't everybody want to be able to tell the government what to do? Well, yes. That's why we think we cast these votes, so that you can tell your member of parliament what it is exactly you think, except they don't really care.
Your vote doesn't count.
Your vote doesn't count.
They don't. Dead people can't vote.
But this is where
That's what we're learning.
This is where we truly now, this time, get to be heard, and we take control, and we actually get to tell them what to do. That's not phony baloney.
Episode 3, tomorrow, we are going to define words such as national, system, track, and the all famous ancient form of pledging. Wait till you learn about this word, loved ones. All right, write your questions in the chat. We will be back tomorrow. Thank you so much for showing up. We love you. Bye now.
Love you guys.